My name is Joel Robinson from COBRA Firing Systems, and in this video we're going to demonstrate how to install a Slat connector into your 18M. So in front of me we have our 18M, we have our fully assembled Slat connector that you will receive. We also have two nylon standoffs that come with your Slat connector, and also a Slat connector installation guide. In order to complete this installation, the only tool you will need is a Phillips screwdriver. However, in this video I'm going to also be using an electric screwdriver to speed up the process. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to set the Slat connector in parts aside. And the first step is going to be taking apart your 18M. In order to do this, you have to remove the 6 screws on the front of the module. And if you flip the unit over, you'll also have to remove the 4 screws on the back of the module. So I'm going to go ahead and do that using the electric screwdriver just to speed up the process. Alright, so now that we have the last screw out of the enclosure, we can go ahead and just open it up. The next step is going to be removing these 3 existing Q-strips. All you have to do is simply pull up on them. And just kind of set those aside. Same for the remaining 2. And you'll notice that left behind are these 3 terminal gaskets. And if those are not left behind, they're going to be simply along this little lip on the Q-strip. So now we can go ahead and grab our Slat connector. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this back plane off. And all you have to do is grab each of these parts and just kind of wiggle a little bit. And do the same for the remaining 2 parts. Alright, so now we're going to take these new Q-strips and we're going to put them, starting with the top, into these Q bays. So we'll take the rubber gasket, and you'll see here that one side of the Q-strip is actually a little bit bigger than the other side. Same goes for the rubber gasket, so you're just going to line these up accordingly. And then when we insert them back into the terminal bay, you'll see here there's the port. These pins right here are just going to line up with that port. So if you see one of these pins sticking out, that means it's misaligned, and all you have to do is realign it. Do the same for the second Q-strip. And then for this last part, I found it easier to take 2 of the screws that you took off the front of the enclosure, and those screws have the little O-ring on there. And what you're going to do is you're going to insert them through the front into the Q hole, and you might actually have to screw them into place. I'm just doing it with my fingers real quickly. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be now using these as guideposts. I'm just going to screw this in real quick just to get it. There we go. Alright, so now you see that. Now we have these 2 screws as guides. We'll take our terminal gasket, drop it on here. And we'll do the same thing for the last piece of the Slat connector. Once again, we're going to line this up with the pins with the port here. So you can see that they're aligned. Then we're going to take the back plane and we're going to re-put that on all 3 of these. Let me flip this over here so it's easier to see. So you can actually tell just by looking at this, it's pretty easy to misalign these pins. So what I like to do is start with one side, such as this side, and you line this up first. I can see that all of them are in the proper spot. I'll do the same for the middle. And then you notice that one just kind of fell into place as well. You just kind of push it. Just like so. And if you ever see one of those pins misaligned, all you have to do is take it apart and realign it. Alright, so now before we put our enclosure back together, we're going to grab that small bag that has those 2 nylon standoffs, and we're going to put these on these screws here and right here. So all I have to do is just kind of drop them on there, like so. And so now we are ready to put our enclosure back together. Before we put our enclosure back together, there's a couple things you got to watch out for. First off, you do not want these wires to be pinched between the battery compartment and the board here. You also don't want these wires to get pinched between any of these standoffs here. And also, in some cases, you might see the antenna wire that's back here. You don't want that to get pinched between the front and the back half of the enclosure. So I'm just going to kind of push these wires down a little bit. Take the battery door off so you can easily see in there. I'm going to flip that over. You'll see that there's nothing being pinched here. So we're just going to line the 2 enclosures up and just kind of hold them together. And I'm actually just going to quickly look over here and inspect that that's not being pinched. I can see that none of these wires are being pinched on these standoffs here. And so now we are going to put the 4 screws that do not have the O-rings into the back of the enclosure. Go ahead and screw those together. Oh, actually, here's the important thing. If you are using an electric screwdriver, you do not want to tighten the screws all the way. If you do that, it's very possible that you will actually break the little standoff here that's in the corner of the enclosure. So what you're going to do is, if you are using an electric screwdriver, just tighten it about 3/4 the way, something like that. And then what you'll do is you'll take your screwdriver and finish tightening it up the rest of the way. All right, so we'll do the same thing with these 3 screws. Once again, okay, so we just finished tightening up the last screw. We're going to go ahead and flip the unit over, and we're going to do the 6 screws in the front. And once again, you want to make sure these do not over tighten. If you do over tighten it, you'll actually see this O-ring will start to bow out the side. So yeah, what you're going to do is you're going to tighten it about 3/4 the way with your electric screwdriver, and then hand tighten it the remaining part of the way. So let me just demonstrate. Something like that, about that far in, and then do the rest with your screwdriver. And then we'll repeat that for the remaining 6 screws on the front. Alright, so we just finished hand tightening the 6 screws on the front, and we are now done with the slat connector installation process. Now, once you have this all done, it's definitely recommended to take your module outside and a slat cable, go ahead and hook it up and fire all 18 Qs to ensure that they all actually fire properly. If there is an issue, take apart your module, inspect to make sure everything is plugged in correctly, and if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact us at COBRAFiringSystems.com.